Good morning. If you're just logging in, we're giving folks a minute to get logged in here and then we're going to get started. While you're waiting, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. Let us know where you're joining from. Okay, we're going to start our program. Welcome to the 2024 Annual Business Meeting of the Association of Midwest Museums. I'm Charity Counts, the Executive Director of AMM. Before the meeting begins and the rest of our conference virtual day commences, I'd like for all of us to take a moment to redirect our attention to the land we each occupy and waterways that connect us, and honor the Indigenous peoples who have called these places home. Since AMM is located in Indianapolis, I ask you to join me in acknowledging the Miami, Delaware, Potawatomi, Shawnee, Wee, and Kickapoo communities, their elders both past and present, as well as future generations. Thank you. Today's meeting features brief announcements related to AMM member business. It's all the fun and exciting parts of a traditional annual business meeting, all in 20 minutes. Members should have received emails from us on June 19th and July 17th with the minutes from the 2023 annual business meeting for reference today, as well as materials related to advanced voting for board elections and bylaws revisions. We've turned on Zoom's built-in live transcription feature. To turn this on or off, you can use the CC button in the menu at the bottom of your Zoom window or wherever it appears on your device. We're also recording this session for the benefit of members who are unable to attend today live. Please use the chat feature to comment and engage with our board today. For starters, please take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat and let us know where you're joining from if you haven't done so already. And I'd like to now turn it over to Charles Katzenmeyer, Vice President of Advancement at the Field Museum in Chicago and the AMM Board President, to call this meeting to order. Charles?
Thank you, Charity, and welcome everyone to a virtual conference to precede our annual in-person event next week in Columbus. It's great having you here. Charity invited me to talk for a few minutes, a luxury she may never again extend with such blind faith. And I promise to be brief, but there's a topic on my mind that my team at the Field Museum has heard me chattering about for several months. Clearly, it's not quite out of my system, so here it is again. There's a lingering truth we all acknowledge about the world following the pandemic. It's not quite the same. Some new skills and technologies, some added competencies, and a whole bag of challenges in the workplace and in our lives that have not yet been resolved. First, museums aren't quite back. The audiences are a bit different in their mix. Membership is generally down in the sector, just as subscriptions are down in theaters. People haven't come back wholeheartedly, and when they do register, it's always late. This conference is no exception. In the last few days, we've had a terrific rush of registrations for today and next week's in-person conference, the kind of phenomenon we would have seen several weeks earlier before the pandemic. Are we just out of practice, or are we afraid to commit? We know FOMO is a real thing, but it's sort of a lazy FOMO. Like, we'll get around to our fear of missing out, but first we need to be afraid of something else. It's just weird. 4 years ago, in a few months, lockdowns happened, and we all went to our respective caves, and we learned it was possible to live there. Then a few of us with considerable privilege learned how to work from the cave. Not everyone across the economy, but most of us who work in museums. Quickly, the entertainment platforms found us in the cave, and we were able to manage. Then when it was safe to emerge, many people rushed to travel, but most of us just found our way back to work. And it was a hybrid schedule that remains to today. I don't think those streaming services will surrender audiences easily. So some of our traditional visitors, people we could count on to come to museums, remain a bit distracted by the way they lived during lockdown. Face it, we've lost some market share, and we need to work harder to win back and grow our audiences. Curiously, there has never been a time when we had so many ways to connect with each other. And yet there's a very well-documented epidemic of loneliness in our country. It doesn't make sense. Compounding that new reality Did you know that Americans spend an average of 4 hours and 37 minutes a day on their phones? That comes out to 1 day per week, 6 days a month, and 70 days per year. And for teenagers, it's 3 hours more per day, 7 hours and 22 minutes. There's a great deal of chatter today about the notion of third spaces, those physical places that are not home or work, places we choose to be that satisfy a human need for company and fellowship. Where are these spaces and how do we get them back? Everyone goes to the grocery store, but that's not really doing the job. And neither is the DMV, which definitely is not a third space, more of a purgatory space. And in the age of earbuds, gyms have really become sort of multiverses, not shared third spaces at all. I'd like to think that museums could be essential third spaces for audiences who are looking for safe, family-friendly, enriching environments in which people can encounter ideas and maybe relearn the art of listening to each other, because that certainly doesn't happen online. It's too easy not to listen and to be dragged into a divisive and cruel state of mind. But when we are together in one space, behaviors change. We're more likely to practice active listening, and perhaps we can help restore a civility to public conversation that is so deeply lacking. I don't think any other cultural sector has the capacity to return us to a place of respect and ease the divide that grips our country than museums. We need to claim our role as a welcoming town square of ideas, where everyone can participate and exchange their perceptions of art and science and history. It's in our DNA to be those spaces. And well, because I'm a fundraiser, I think it begins with belonging, with membership. Membership is the relationship that tethers people to our work and builds on the historic trust we have earned since the Great Recession. But we need to see it as more than revenue today or a stream of revenue tomorrow. It's the community we choose to build, one that offers that almighty objective third-party endorsement of our efforts, the silent ambassadors for our cause. We really need our members. But just as much, I'm convinced that they really need us. That's why membership is more than revenue. Membership in today's museum is mission. Speaking of third spaces, we hope this conference, and particularly the event in Columbus next week, may serve as a third space for all of you. Not home, not work, but a place you choose to regenerate and find a sense of belonging. If you're not able to be with us next week, please think about budgeting for this conference and road tripping with a few colleagues next year. You'll find resources to fuel your expertise and much more, including people in our region who can help you succeed now and turn what you might think of as a job into a long and meaningful career. On behalf of the board, thank you for being part of our third space in Midwest Museums, and please enjoy the conference. I will now call the 2024 Annual Business Meeting of the Association of Midwest Museums to order. As our first order of business, we'll approve last year's meeting minutes, and I will pass the mic to Carmen Hillenberg, our secretary, to lead that process. Carmen?
Thank you so much, Charles. So members should have received an email notification on June 19th and July 17th containing a digital copy of the minutes for the 2023 annual business meeting held virtually on Zoom webinar. Can I get a motion to approve the 2023 annual business meeting minutes as presented?
So moved.
All right, DeAndre, a motion moved by DeAndrea, and then would anyone like to second that motion?
Second.
All right, Brenda, thank you so much. Are there any changes or items that members at large would like to request or discuss? Okay, well, thank you. Seeing no changes or items for discussion, we will now ask everyone to vote to approve the minutes as presented using a Zoom webinar poll. Please cast your vote.
think we have just about everybody who's voted. I'm going to go ahead and share results.
All right, well, good. Well, thank you so much. And so it looks like that the 2023 annual meeting minutes are approved as presented. And so I will now pass the mic to Katie Van Allen, our immediate past president and chair of the nominating committee, to share the results of this year's board elections.
Thank you, Carmen. Good morning, everybody. I'm excited to share with you the results of our 2024 board elections. Members should have received a digital copy of the 2024 roster and slate of officers June 19th and July 17th, and voted in advance to approve the roster as presented. So let's introduce our new board candidates whose photos are on the screen, and they are also with us today. So nominees, please wave your hand as your names are read. We have Aaron Carlson Mast, President and CEO of the Lincoln Presidential Foundation in Springfield, Illinois. Joseph Imholt, Executive Vice President of the Bakken Museum in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And Amanda McVeigh, CFO and Vice President of Administration and Finance at the Center of Science and Industry in Columbus, Ohio. Thank you. In addition to new board candidates, we present a few changes to our officer slate for this year. I'll move from immediate past president to an at-large role on the board for 1 year as my final term on the AMM board. Joy DeFrance has been nominated by the board to serve as our next treasurer, And Cheryl Dar has agreed to serve 1 additional year in the role of senior advisor to support the treasurer role transition and ensure we have continuity for our business operations. And finally, we have 1 at-large board member up for an additional term, Danny Gonzalez, Director of Exhibits at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. Members again voted in advance to approve the board roster and slate of officers as presented. So we'll look at the results of that advanced member voting. Wonderful. Thanks to everyone who voted. Based on these results, we've got 99% of votes in favor. Board roster and slate of officers is approved as presented. I'll note that we received no comments with only 1 vote against the roster as presented. So please join me in a round of applause to welcome our new members and treasurer. Yay, everybody. Thank you. And up next is Cheryl Dar from the Magic House, also in St. Louis, with a revision to the bylaws.
Hi, everybody. So the AMM board and staff recognize the need for the association bylaws to be updated to reflect the current operations in the post-2020 environment. Again, in the said email that you got, you received these revisions earlier on June 19th and July 17th. So they are shown, and I just wanted to highlight some of the updates to the language were applicable to reflect the inclusion of remote and virtual options for meetings and businesses, including advanced voting options implemented during and maintained since the pandemic. Corrections to the membership types, use of just more inclusive language, addition of the description of the role of the immediate past president, updates to the description of committees, including the potential for committees to include representatives from the broader association membership, addition of quorum requirements for meetings and elections. A special change that I want to point out is that the proposed expansion of the seats on the board from a maximum of 18 to a maximum of 24. This will ensure the representation by at least 2 board members per state, which will also allowing us room for individuals who bring perspective and skills that are not otherwise representative. The 24 seats will include up to 2 senior advisor positions that are appointed by the president. Members were asked to vote in advance to approve the revised bylaws as presented and submit questions or any suggestions they had. Let's look at the results. So 100% participating members voted in favor of approving the bylaws as presented, and the revised bylaws are now approved. I'm going to pass the mic on to Brenda from the Minnesota Historical Society of St. Paul to assist with recognition.
Thank you so much, Cheryl. I would like to take just a few minutes to recognize everyone who pledged support or contributed to the Association of Midwest Museums annual fund in 2023, as well as those who have pledged or contributed already in 2024. Contributions in 2023 totaled over $23,000, including Leadership Circle and George R. Fox Society memberships and other individual contributions. This is a new record for AMM, and we want to thank everyone who contributed so very much. $23,000. A great number of contributions were received during our state competition in the last quarter of last year. And I am very proud to say that the winning state of that friendly competition was Minnesota. We have already received over 1,000 gifts and pledges for 2024. And on the screen in front of you is our 2023-2024 donor honor roll, followed by our Leadership Circle members. Please join me in a round of applause for all of our annual fund contributors. I am not overstating when I say we could not do any of this without any of these folks. Next, we would like to thank our corporate sponsors and organizational partners whose support have made this year's conference possible. That is a lot of names. We are very lucky. Please join me in a round of applause for our sponsors and our hosts. Thank you again, everyone, for your dedication to the Midwest Museum community. I will now hand things back over to Carmen for the announcement of our award recipients.
Thank you so much, Brenda. That is amazing. And the AMM Awards program recognizes individuals and organizations for the work they're doing to advance their institution, improve the workplace, reach new audience, and serve their communities. It is my pleasure as the chair of the awards committee to announce this year's AMM Awards honorees. This year's Best Practices Award recipient is the Children's Museum of Pittsburgh for their traveling exhibition project, Aim High, a collaborative partnership between the museum and a local nonprofit called the Hosanna House. The Detroit Historical Society will receive this year's Groundbreakers Award for a 2-year initiative called The Hustle. Through this project, the museum leaned into contemporary collecting and storytelling to uncover the stories of Detroit's unsung Black entrepreneurs. An additional institutional award unique to 2024 will be presented to the Birmingham Museum in Michigan. The museum initiated a multi-organizational collaborative to unearth their county's underground railroad history. And we look forward to honoring the museum with the Collaborators Award. This year's Distinguished Career Award recipient is Cynthia Sweet, Executive Director of the Iowa Museum Association, whose unwavering dedication has led to the creation of initiatives like Teaching Iowa History and STEPS IMA. And last but not least, we look forward to celebrating a rising star at the Indiana Historical Society, Bethany Rockovic, with the Promising Leadership Award. Bethany is being recognized for her outstanding leadership of innovative new projects, compassionate advocacy for visitors, and support for the next generation of museum professionals. Please join me in a round of applause for this year's AMM Awards recipient. All right, and we will celebrate our honorees in Columbus and invite all of our members to participate in virtual events this fall to learn more about their work and celebrate their wins. I will now pass the mic back to Charles to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Carmen. The rest of the AM board and all of our members who were able to join us this morning or are catching this recording later, I hope you will join us for our conference virtual day, beginning shortly at 8:30 Central Time, 9:30 Eastern. Our program will kick off with a virtual tour of the newly designed Hopewell Earthworks UNESCO World Heritage Sites, followed by a session about the collaborative effort to achieve this recognition. The 2024 annual business meeting is now officially adjourned.
And right on time. Thanks, everybody. See you in a few.